Here we go. Okay, bear with me. I'm going to try not to repeat myself as people join too much, so it's as useful a time as possible. This meeting is our inaugural meeting of the Special Education Parent Connection. And I'm hoping that it is a takeoff from the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, which was excellent, but it petered out, for lack of a better term, I think, because people are just so darn busy and it's hard to get out at night to do things no matter how much we want to. So this being in the remote setting, I'm hoping will help people get more access. And it is being recorded, and that will continue, and I plan to continue to record them. You can show your face if you want or not if you want. And please, I'm going to open up the chat so that I can see that, and I will try to monitor the chat well as we go. Can you see the chat, by the way, that I have open or not?
I click on the chat feature, yeah.
Okay, but you can't see that it's on my screen. That's why I'm asking, because I'm just wondering if it was.
No, I can't see on your screen.
Okay, so bear with me on that. I am trying to get this started, but I don't have an assistant right at the moment. So anyway, the meeting tonight will be about, or today will be about sharing information. I've got a mission statement that I'd like to share with you, and then to discuss the parent peer mentoring program that we've hoped to start up in the really near future. So, okay, so let's jump in. As I said, sharing information is about, was intended to be about the purpose of these meetings is to have parents have a voice in the district to speak about their concerns, what they want to know about, to share the good things too. I'm hoping people get a chance to share great things. Hi, Elmina. And so that we can bounce ideas off of each other and support each other for our common goal of supporting kids with disabilities. And see, I thought the agenda was going to be too packed, but it probably isn't. What I want to share with you, I'm going to share the agenda with you. And the goal is, though, is not just always be me to be doing the talking, and it's not for me to always be planning what we speak about. I want people to feel comfortable enough to share with what they want to talk about and how they want these meetings to go. Okay, are you seeing the screen with the agenda on it at this? Yeah, great. Okay, so this is the agenda as I set it up, and right now we're talking about the sharing information. I can't see all your faces now, so bear with me, but it looks like we currently have 5 participants, me included, and I'm sure we're going to have more soon. What I wanted to share with you tonight was a mission statement that I stole entirely from another school district. And and I thought it was a great mission statement, but I thought that we could work on this a little bit together. I don't want to put you in a position where you feel like this is our priority, but it's important to me that we all know why we're here. And so if I could just read it briefly to you, the mission of the Burlington School District Parent Connection is to provide information to our families and the community relative to all matters concerning the special education of our district's children. We support families through parental support groups, monthly meetings, resources, and workshops. We aren't doing it yet, but that's what my hope is we'll do. Our presence serves to educate the community about the uniqueness of children with special needs and to encourage understanding, respect, and acceptance of these children. We strive to foster open communication between the district's administration and our special education families. We advocate for the learning and functional support that children with special needs require in order for them to receive the education they deserve. So that was my completely lifted draft of our mission statement. I'm wondering if people have thoughts about this.
I always have thoughts, Laura.
Good.
I'm so sorry. Laura and I were just in another meeting, so I've just been yapping at her for the past hour. It's like I can't stop.
Oh, it's okay.
My only, because I read through it earlier because you sent it along ahead of time. My only comment is, of course, coming from an ableism view of, can it be children with disabilities? Do we have to state special needs? You know, just because it's such a cutesy euphemism, you know? But I recognize and respect that it is a common term, but it is a common term that's chock full of ableism.
I agree with that too. I'd like to see a language change there.
I agree with it as well, because I think it really does zero in on our specific population. So I think that's a great or an important change. I'm Bonnie, by the way.
Thank you. Anything else jump out? Is it too small?
I think I'd like to see something that just talks about bringing some of maybe these workshops or this idea and presence, not just to the I know that like the families of kids in special ed are going to be the main focus here, but I want to make sure that the like larger message of acceptance is definitely getting out to everybody else in the district, so that it's not just the parents' a job to advocate and make it happen, but where the classroom teachers and the other students are welcoming to this and are aware that this is a thing in the classroom too.
Yeah. Important. We were just talking about that, weren't we, Kelly?
We were. That whole idea of overall acceptance and just universal design. You know, if you have one kiddo that needs a speech to text device, then it should be available to all. You know, it's that concept of that's inclusiveness, that's acceptance.
And also I would like to add that while this is primarily for parents, it would be also good to have teachers or paraeducators, like representatives from the school too. So the school is also aware of all what's happening, you know, and they can hear the parents' side and concerns, and then they can bring the input of, you know, they can bring back to their communities, okay, this is what parents are asking for and needs, how can we meet those needs?
No, I like that, Almina. It more of just an organic approach of sharing our stories and getting our students' voices out there.
You know, and like I'm a huge proponent, and Kelly, you know my story, what happened this summer. Like, just before you attribute it to the behavior, please make sure it's not medical. And also to this, I think it would be great if we could have medical professionals in here to support us.
Do you mean in the meetings here today?
I was not.
So say more about that. Where do you want the medical professionals?
So here's what happened this summer. All of a sudden on his 15th birthday, my son had a seizure. And that led to a whole slew of tests and doctor's visits and all that. It turned out that the neurons in part of his brain are not firing fast enough, which explained the developmental delay and all that. But he is a sophomore now. And all through elementary school and part of the middle school, everybody thought that he had behavior issues. Well, you know, it turned out now it was medical. He medically was not able to process what was happening around him, and he was lashing out because that was his last resort.
Interesting. Okay. It's good I'm not sure what to do with that in terms of the mission statement. Are you feeling like it should be part of the mission statement, or are you feeling like?
I don't think it should be part of the mission statement. I think more of the including diversity of people in those meetings so we can hear all the different perspectives. So, you know, maybe just expanding on perspective, adding that part into the mission statement, having different perspectives.
I think also in terms of, paperwork and whatever, when your kid gets a 504, that's something that would be in there. And I think for special ed families and those kids, that considerations that would be in a 504 are discussed here.
So tell me, I'm sorry, just help me define that a little more, Amanda. What would I put here? How would I address that? Are you feeling like
I guess I don't feel like that has to be in the mission statement necessarily, just as sort of like a piggyback onto that idea that medical needs are, need to be accommodated and considered and sometimes thought of first, or at least not ruled out or thought of last. But, my son has an IEP, he has a 504. He luckily doesn't have any sort of emergency things going on. He's autistic and has ADHD and ODD. But I think that probably a lot of folks who come here would like to make sure that their kids who do have 504s or whatever are supported. So the 504 is the thing that came from the doctor. So I feel like the medical needs concerns, and even eventually, not necessarily in the mission statement or in like these meetings, but having somebody in the medical community who could then maybe advocate in some ways to pediatricians could also be nice as like a long-term focus, or have like some kind of relationship with some of the community's pediatricians, because we're not so lucky to have a pediatrician who specializes in autism or some of my son's disability. He is very happy to find resources and helpful, but having sort of a liaison into the medical community could be very helpful for some things.
Yeah.
I agree with that, absolutely. I mean, I work in early ed, for those of you that don't know me. And we did a training a few years back, and it was all about anxiety. And I remember asking a very personal and pointed question to the presenter of how anxiety can play with and against autism, and how to pull one out from the other to know which to support. And he just looked at me like I had no idea what I was talking about. And he was like, well, that's autism. That's a completely different thing. And I'm like, but it's autism with anxiety. Do you remember that meeting, Elmina? Like, I was so angry to have this professional that was refusing to see the reality of what he's supporting. You're not just going to have somebody with anxiety. It just simply isn't going to be. There's always something else at play. Sorry, Doug's.
It's true. That is very true. So I invite everyone here going forward to take a look at the mission statement and do some editing. What you can do is if you wish, I plan to do editing based on what you've given me, but if you wish, you're seeing the mission statement now, correct? Yeah. You can pull down the editing here and make suggestions. This is good because then you can make suggestions that are, see what I mean? It makes like a little mark through it, so it shows what the suggestion is. And that way you don't have to worry about it being something that came out of the blue. And I want to invite people to do this because this is ours, not mine. It's ours as a group, and I've made it accessible to everyone. So please feel free to do that, and I will continue to do that. Does anybody else want to make any more comments on the mission statement for right now? Okay. I can see some.
Hi, can people hear me? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, hi, Erica.
I hear somebody.
Sorry, I was a
Hey,
little...
you're Erica. I knew I recognized that voice.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I was a little late. I had something else I need to finish up. So I know I'm coming into it, but I did want to mention, and maybe this was discussed, and I thought it was discussed last time. I love that a mission statement is being developed among the group. Is there ways or how can we expand to get those who cannot, it seems, join us? I'm sure there's other voices that are missing, and just to think through, how do we reach out or, kind of encourage or get information to, so that the voices that aren't necessarily here and able to be here for whatever reason are still still heard and their information is still brought in. And maybe that was already discussed, so I apologize if I'm bringing up something that's already been discussed, but I wanted to bring that to the table.
I appreciate that. And for those of you who don't know Erica is one of our 2 special education compliance coordinators, brand new this year. And oh my goodness, boy, are they doing a great job. They are the heroes, and they're doing amazing work supporting our special educators and paras and SLP, everybody. So honestly, this is such a blessing to have them. And Erica is wonderful. She's from Pennsylvania and is coming with eyes that have seen this work in larger communities. So yes, Erica, that's a great suggestion. I do want to open it up to that. Let's have a chat about that, if you don't mind, for a few minutes, because and thank you, because I did mean to mention that. I set this time and date somewhat arbitrarily based on my experience of when people are usually able to join us. I know several people said they were going to join that don't look like they were able to make it. Life is busy. But I also have set the time as fixed time and a fixed date going forward every month, because my concern is if we change it up, people aren't going to know when it is, right? But I'm open to suggestions. What could make this easier for more people to come? Anybody have ideas?
I feel like this is the age-old question that we've been having for years. I think that the virtual aspect definitely helps. You know, I'm able to attend with substantially less stress of, oh, what's happening at home. But yeah, I just don't know.
Could there be, and I understand the fixed time, fixed date, that certainly, you know, gets it on the calendar and that kind of thing. I've seen people where, again, just a suggestion, it may not work, but where it's a fixed schedule with a slight rotations, and so that maybe it's every other month and the time adjusts slightly, the day adjusts slightly. So that's one thought, but another thought too could be, you know, those of us who are here and, you know, are able to be active for, you know, like you said, Kelly, it's great on you, you know, time and things. Could we even have those type of people be ambassadors? I'm putting that in air quotes, whatever we want to call it, that then are maybe helping to reach out to, you know, where your child might be at school, or, you know, that kind of thing, to kind of encourage others, or, you know, find out what might work there, so that there's, you know, this idea that people are reaching out. I mean, that's a lot to put on people, but it's at least maybe a thought of at least, you know, saying hi like you would with classroom parents. I don't know if anyone's had that. We had that in Philly where you had a classroom parent, you know, who helped to kind of reach out. But, you know, just a couple of thoughts and ways that we can, you know, make people feel welcomed, who may not know or may not have the ease of, for whatever reason, sitting down at a computer at the end of a day, or, you know, at the end of a school day. A couple of ideas.
I wonder too if there's a way to have like an ongoing discussion board, like supplement component of this for people who maybe can't make the meetings, but then they can come, and the people who are in the meetings too, if they have afterthoughts, can come into like a place where everybody can post and see the discussion. I know that I don't have a suggestion for a good platform for that, but I always have an easier time if something doesn't work for my schedule to come back later and like sit down and type kind of when I can on my own time, rather than interacting exactly at the meeting time.
Yeah. You know, I've entertained the idea of a blog, which is kind of like that, but a discussion board is maybe a little less aggressive than blogs, maybe. I don't know. Is there a difference?
I mean, with a blog, you'd be posting something, and maybe that posting is like the recording of the meeting, and then below could be it's usually just a general comment section underneath. The benefit I would see to a discussion board over a blog with comment sections is that you could start different threads of discussion that you can easily come back to them and kind of subcategorize them. So if we want to delve into a certain topic, it doesn't have to be, you know, in a dated blog post, and you don't have to search for it, but it's rather a thread in a discussion.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. Thank you.
Or it also maybe already is, but attaching the information, the links, blog, whatever that's happening to, you know, regular correspondence that goes out to families anyway. You know, things like that, whether it's coming from the superintendent, like I saw one yesterday, I happened to have time to sit down and glance at it all. But, you know, correspondence that go home from schools, you know, if it's even just attaching that, hey, maybe you didn't know about this kind of thing to, again, sometimes those papers go home and some people still, I know sometimes I still rely on that tactile piece of paper, you know, that helps remind me of something versus that email or, you know, or something that I can kind of push down. So that might be a thought too, to get it out there to people with regular correspondence.
Right, that's great. So just so everybody knows, we are on the district calendar now. And I did send a school messenger email out to everybody. Did people have a hard time finding the link to get into the meeting?
I did have a hard time with that. That's why I was a little late coming in today as well, because I was having a hard time getting in. But again, I have to use my phone for everything. I don't have a laptop or a computer at my access, so that may have something to do with it as well.
Yeah, I had to text Kelly for the link. So maybe including the link in your email, like the email that you sent out yesterday.
It was, but I think it was a little bit hard to find, because what I did is I put it in the agenda, which was linked to the email, but you know what, it should have been more prominent than that, and I take ownership of that. So it will be more prominent next time.
Okay.
I don't even know if I got your email, Laura, or if I just got to it from the superintendent. I think I just got to it from like the superintendent's email with the links at the bottom. So I'm not even sure if I saw what you sent out. And if I did and forgot, that's obviously my fault. But it wasn't easy to come back to.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I sent it out from school messenger. This link, by the way, folks, will be the same one we always use.
Okay.
So that, I think that'll make it easier going forward, at least for the, you know, those of us that are in the meeting tonight. But this will always be the meeting we have. I won't change it unless I have to, and if I do, I'll let you know, but I don't plan to.
Okay.
So these are really great ideas, and I got to tell you, I have never gotten such good ideas, frankly, and from anybody I've asked this question of before. If you think of anything else, please do not hesitate to let me know. I just love these ideas so much. Great. So, well, I'm not too far ahead of myself here, am I? All right. So next topic here I'd like to talk about is the parent peer mentoring. One of the parents spoke to me, boy, I wish I could say recently, but it's been a while, that she's advocated for parent mentors. And, you know, this is something that we've never done. And I feel like it would be a very parent-led thing, but it would also be something that the district can support because I think it's a great idea. And based on what she said to me was that there's a lot of parents who come to this, you know, come to the district, have children with disabilities, and they don't know what they don't know, right? It's hard to know what you don't know. And when you're dealing with all the ins and outs, you know, I know Vermont Family Network is a gift and they're great people, but they know all the districts. They don't know this one necessarily. I'm sure some of them do. And wouldn't it be great if I have a child with autism, if I had a parent who I knew who could talk to me about it, about how to deal with Burlington School District, or even more specifically my school, when I have a student with autism, and what are the resources that the other parent knew about. You know, I'm not expecting them to be experts, but it'd be nice to have someone like myself who would know how to deal with it if I were that parent. And also because I can't even imagine, you know, I come from a family of people with disabilities, but my children don't have disabilities. And so I've never been in a position where I'm sitting in an IEP meeting. And, but my sister and I have talked about it a great deal. And sitting in a meeting with, say, 10 other adults who you don't know can probably be pretty intimidating. And so.
And Laura, just to add another layer to it, being a bilingual family who comes here from a completely different education system and being met with all that, adds a whole new level of complexity.
Right. Right.
Something I encounter too for my autistic son is sometimes we do not agree with the special ed team, and I don't necessarily know what the other options are because I'm not educated in special education and I don't know all the schools of thought, but maybe having some sort of resource or parents who can kind of not be ambassadors for, but just be somebody who can like talk about some different approaches and maybe some alternative like things that may be options for their children, because I know when you reach a frustration level and you don't have a network and your special educators aren't very flexible or creative, it can be challenging.
Right.
And like quite a dead end, a frustrating dead end.
Absolutely, Amanda. I totally remember just like pulling up like online like IEPs for students that are 6 years old with autism just to see what supports somebody else was getting, not necessarily just to apply them to my son, but just to get that idea of what don't I know, you know, what am I possibly missing out on because I'm not fully versed in this field.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love the parent peer mentoring. Again, VFN, wonderful place. They do a parent-parent connection that is wonderful, and they match people up. You just call up, hey, my son was just diagnosed. I really want to talk to somebody. And they'll be like, oh, you know what? We know this family that's kind of living an identical thing.
Yeah.
Let's connect you with them. You know, I've definitely made a few good friends through that program. But I think there's more than enough parents in this district that are willing to step up and help each other and support each other. And I have to, completely unrelated topic, Jessica, your name is spelt in the way that my name is often misspelled. I'm a Bordeaux as well, but a completely different spelling. And it's been throwing me off because I'm like, it's spelled wrong. So see how my perspective is wrong? Your name's not spelled wrong for you. It's wrong for me though.
Mine is often spelt your way, I'm sure. It only shows your first name, Kaylee, but I'm sure mine is often spelt with a U and all kinds of, never with the X.
I have the U and no X. Excellent. I also met a Boudreaux before, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's how my name's said all the time. Because people want the R and the D.
I'm often pronounced Bordeaux.
Oh,
I'm like, oh.
All right, sorry, Laura. Back
That's how I would pronounce that.
Yes. So, you know, part of our meetings, we should find a way to build in maybe some, what they call in the other meetings I go to, colleagueship. You know, a little bit of time either at the beginning or the end for conversations like this. I mean, I think that in our next meeting it might make sense, and I'm gonna add this here. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that time.
Laura, I think that's a wonderful idea to kind of, you know, again, forge those connections for people across the schools and whatnot. I also love hearing what people were saying about the parent peer mentoring. I would think when, I think it was Kelly, forgive me if it was someone else as well, said, you know, finding information and imagine how reassuring it would be coming from your own district, you know, if we're able to provide that sense of confidence to and connection to our parents. I'm assuming parents that would feel really good coming from your own district of, hey, here's a place for resources, here's a place that you connect with parents, you know, who are going through similar things. I would imagine that would instill confidence. I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, parents, but that sounds like an amazing thing to know coming from your own district.
Well, you know, we have roughly 700 students, a little less now, with IEPs in our district, and another roughly 200 with 504 plans. That means in Burlington, there is no one off of anything. You know, that's one thing I say all the time. There is never one. So, you know, people have their own uniqueness, of course, but there's not anyone who is so completely an outlier that there's no way to figure out what we need to do to support them. And so I wonder if this committee believes that, or connection believes that one of the ways that Burlington School District or my office can support this peer mentoring is to send out a request across the district for parents who wish to be mentors for others, and to or those who want a mentor, and be the clearinghouse to match people up.
Yes, and Laura, I would just like to add that we will probably need some kind of release or consent from the family, so we're not breaching FERPA.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. You know, and if we create a form that is clear that, yeah, that's, you know, that's a very good point, Almina. If we create a form for people, asking them if they want mentorship or if they want to be a mentor, they feel like they've got it somewhat under the belt, then you're right, we'll have to figure out a way to do that in such a way that even because if, for me, Almina, say you and I are paired, it would be somewhat, it could be a little bit sketchy if I didn't have some kind of signed release. So we'll have to figure out something like that. You're right, thank you.
Especially if in Vermont and this district, you know, everybody knows everybody. You might just, I mean, remember last year when you told me about that person who was supposed to do DTI at Smith, and you just said the place where the person worked, and I knew who it was.
Yeah, yeah.
So
experienced very similar thing.
just to protect all of us.
Yeah, it's a very small state that we live in. It really is. Yep.
I think the liaison should be included as well to be able to pass that information along to our other families.
I also wonder if it's worthwhile to do like some kind of just uniform sort of training for anybody who is going to be a mentor, just as like a blanket, this is what's allowed, this is what's not allowed. And then like, as far as what, you know, you don't want somebody giving necessarily medical advice or something like that, but just also so people are kind of all on the same page. I mean, hopefully mentors would be paired up where it makes sense, you know, because parents with families of nonverbal children probably aren't going to have the same needs as verbal children and such. So it would hopefully be paired up in an ideal way, but also to get people maybe on the same page and just aware of some other services, especially if like comorbidities or other things like that do crop up where it's like, hey, maybe it's worth finding out if your kid has anxiety too, or whatever.
Absolutely. VFN does a really nice comprehensive training for the parents that do parent to parent. It's, if I remember correctly, it was like a couple sessions, a few hours each, but they kind of go over just, you know, active listening and you're not answering, you're listening and you're helping process. You're not trying to find a solution, but just kind of joining them for that journey and helping pick which roads, not necessarily choose the roads for them.
Great. Maybe they'll share their curriculum with us. I'm all about that. Why reinvent the wheel? They're great. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I will inquire with them to see what guidance they can give us.
Okay, yeah, and because of course they talk a lot about HIPAA and FERPA and just privacy rights and it being small community, and you know, I got matched up with somebody that lives 3 streets down, you know, and like we had no idea, and now, you know, we're great friends because it was a perfect match.
That's great. And I have to say, I couldn't think of all these things by myself. This is already, I don't know about for you all, but for me, this has already been an amazingly useful meeting.
Laura, this may be, I mean, it's in the same realm, but I don't know if it was brought up here, and forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn. It was that thought too, going with parent mentor, whether or not we could create also maybe a peer mentor system, appealing, sorry, someone's shaking ice in my hand, appealing, you know, having someone who maybe doesn't always get the opportunity to show the leadership skills paired, you know, kind of that biggie of like big brother, big sister. Again, there's lots of things to think about with FERPA and whatnot, but maybe fodder for another meeting of thoughts of having that kind of pairing available too. Again, if there's interest in it to help, you know, students kind of get through, you know, things and how do you navigate and whatnot.
Now y'all see why I love Erica so much, because she gives me great segues and great ideas. And that's actually something I wanted to discuss, because right at the top here, you might notice that I've got facilitator, note taker, and timekeeper listed here. For the meetings, that would be a little tiny investment in leadership. It doesn't have to always be my voice. That's my point. I want this meeting to be something that we all can do together and get great ideas and work together to make our district stronger. And also, as we move forward with peer mentoring, I'm hesitant to put a lot on parents. I am aware and very cognizant of the fact that you guys already have a real job, and a lot of folks work outside of the home as well. When I say a real job, I mean your family and your homes and all the things that you're dealing with, and then you also may have jobs too. And life is so busy, and this is part of the work that I love to do, and I consider this opportunity a gift. So I'm willing to shoulder a lot of the load, but I want to make sure that I don't make this all about what I want. I want it to be about what you want. And that is a good segue here. So let me go down here to, I'd like to assess what worked well in this meeting and what we can change for next time. And then I would like to talk about topics for next time we meet. If people will feel comfortable, can you share with me what worked well in this meeting and what we might want to change?
Exchanging the ideas worked really well. Everybody has a voice, had the voice, or still has.
Should I put that under the pluses or the deltas?
For me, it's a plus.
Right. Okay. So
I think having more reach to families, I mean, just seeing new faces here is wonderful. Like Laura and I were joking that it was just going to be Laura and I staring at each other again, because that's what happens a lot. So it was nice to be staring at other people as well.
I like that it's, Wednesday or later week, because I personally work third shift. Today is so I work 7 at night, 7 in the morning. It's a long 12 hours. So the nights that I do work, I do nothing but sleep and work because there's not much time for anything else. So later in the week always works better as far as I'm concerned, so that I can be a part of the groups, because I am looking for more information for my son. I don't know any programs out there, things like that. So anything that that other people, resources, that anything that anybody else has, I'm looking for personally, just to be able to outreach myself and knowledge for my son.
Laura?
yes.
Would it be appropriate to share contact information at this meeting, just in case? Because Jessica, I'd be happy to talk with you. I'm the parent of a 4th grader and an 8th grader, and have gone through this process for a while. And although there may be differences in what our kids' resources that they need, I'm happy to at least answer any questions as a parent or whatever. I know it's can be a very lonely place to be sometimes when you don't know where to start. So I'm happy to share contact information with whomever, but I defer to you, Laura, first, because I know there are compliance issues and FERPA and those kind of things, but I'm happy to.
Right. I can say that if anyone feels like they want to put an email address in the chat for others,
Yep.
they're welcome to do that. But we are going to definitely launch the mentor program in the very near future. And I really hope that this group might be interested in being a participant, either as a mentor or mentee. That would be great. And it's going to take, a couple of weeks probably, but we're going to get there. This is something that I'd want to do for quite a while.
Great. I think another thing to think about too is being allies with the teachers as we do this, because because I think it's going to be incredible to be able to share information with one another, but there are going to be lots of landmines along the way where we might interrupt processes in place in the schools. Does that make sense? I feel like if we can somehow feel the freedom, some like boundaries to bounce around in as we chat and share resources and with each other, but there might be constraints within the schools or that we don't know about that might interrupt what some really great things that are happening in the schools. That's always my concern. If I don't know if I articulated that properly, but if maybe we can connect with some teachers as we share resources with one another. Something might be available in one school and not another school. It might be underway and there might be good work happening. That's what I find, is that, you know, I as I do research and as I'm trying to gather resources, I don't want to step on anybody's toes in the schools, because there are a lot of people working really, really hard on our kids' behalf. But I really want to be able to connect with parents and share what I know and learn from other people. I hope that made sense.
And that's exactly what I was thinking when Amanda said that sometimes there are discrepancies between teams, school team and parents. Sometimes, you know, I used to work for the school, so I know how limited the resources are, which, you know, in the ideal world, it shouldn't be like that, but it is. So having that transparency and knowing like, okay, this is, yes, we can do this. No, we cannot do this, but because this, and that. It's not because we don't validate your idea, but we just can't do it.
Right. Right. And how do we connect with one another and share what we know without straining very stretched resources, even more? Because I find myself individually doing that all the time as a parent, asking for more than is really available and ultimately having to take something from somebody else. But there are things as parents that we need to know and at the very least support each other and those kind of things, and do it in a way that's respectful to the people providing the resources.
Yeah, I would also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
I would also suggest that we can be a voice that helps create change. That if we are united, then we can do that. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I do know that the nature of having families and all the things that we have to do means that sometimes our families are underrepresented when people talk about budgets and when people talk about programs. So this might be a way for us to get there too.
Laura, I wanted to add that something very positive to me was the different ways that the notice seemed to go out. It sounded like it went out in an email. It was in the note from the superintendent. So it sounded like there was another layer to it, which is wonderful. So I want to just shout that out. And also, as we think of other ways, something just dawned on me. I wonder if it could even be something that is brought up at an IEP meeting, like, hey, did you know? Just like, even if it's just a little flyer, or something. Once again, there could be lots of people who don't even know this exists, as we're talking about resources. So sometimes when you have people in a meeting, just to have an extra thing of, hey, you might not know, but there is, and kind of a little brochure or something. So wonderful that we're getting the word out, and just continue to think of ways to spread the word.
I had this thought, Erica, of it being, like something that at the beginning of the year, the general educator or the special educator, as they're greeting their families, like, hey, just so you know, there's this resource that we have that would that could meet your family's needs. And it was also on Facebook. I know I shared it today and was like, everybody in this district come to this meeting. And, so, just a little bit of parent tenacity. And I think, I know Shelley's not at this meeting right now, but another family in the district is feeling a breath of hope. And it was really nice to hear her say that, because I haven't heard this particular person express that feeling in our district. And it kind of buoyed me up. I was like, oh, if she's feeling hopeful, if she is able to shift her frame of mind into hopeful instead of despondent, then the rest of us can kind of follow. And I think if we feel those beginning pieces of support, we are going to be more likely to dive in and be more tenacious and speak up again and not feel like we're just going to be ignored as history has proven us to be. And, you know, I'm not trying to poop on the district here. I'm actually trying to say, hey, I'm so happy to see this change. I'm so happy to have a superintendent that acknowledges special education. I think it's raising my tenacity in speaking up and trying to pull more parents in and saying, no, this time it's going to be different. Like, just trust me, it's going to be different.
That's the plan, definitely. Okay, I'm going to direct us down to the topics. I added a couple while we were discussing this, resources and program discussions, update on the parent mentoring. I want to make sure that I keep you updated on progress. What else do we want to talk about in November?
I don't know. We could maybe talk about how special education is going through the COVID experience. You know, I'm sure we have a varied selection of remote, hybrid combos here, and just kind of maybe share out our stories from that. I mean, I know I have a success remote story for my family, but I'm sure that others haven't fared as well, you know. So I think that's another area where the parent support could come in. You know, I have had to reach out to a couple of my friends like, okay, oh my gosh, just get me through today. Like, what should I do next? And, you know, in other days, I'm the person that's being called of, oh my God, it's Monday and I'm about to lose my mind. Like, get me through the week, you know? So I think that it could be a pretty valuable conversation of just how we're all doing with this non-normal school year.
And Laura, I know that in one of the meetings, Principal Green mentioned something about pairing with UVM students so they can tutor. I'm not sure if it's just for the high school students or it's throughout the district. So if you can find out more about that and give us an update.
Will do.
Thank you.
I wonder if it'd be helpful in the next meeting to have some kind of like a concrete topic in terms of what does the IEP meeting look like and who are the stakeholders in an IEP meeting, and like just talk about the IEP meeting specifically. That might be somewhat of a hook to get people to come to the meeting and say, like, talk about their feelings about it, or, you know, their anxiety around going and that kind of thing. So it becomes less of an adversarial situation and more of a how to make it a collaborative meeting, if that makes sense.
It doesn't have to be for next time, but just as a topic maybe to hit on sometime, like partnerships in the community and maybe some like out of district but still in Burlington, like social programs for kids that people have success with. And I'm also like, I don't know if there's like a Big Brother kind of program for kids, but something like that. Like, is there a, you know, like a special ed grad student program in the area that we could form a partnership with, or any other kind of things like that?
Wow, that's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
I'm currently a grad student in special ed and would be happy to help facilitate that communication and see if there's some way that we can hook into the St. Mike's community or something.
Oh, that's a great program, Erica.
Yeah, and yeah, I think there's just a lot of opportunities, and I think that my experience has been that the parent perspective is hard to come by in those classes. I'm sort of a unicorn in that situation, and so getting a parent perspective is not something that they're able to get easily. So, you know, that might be really valuable for and motivate this grad students or the programs to be helpful in this community.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In the past,
I'd be happy to facilitate that.
In the past, VFN has had family faculty speak to like St. Mike students, UVM students.
Yeah.
I can't think of where else we've spoken. But yeah, to bring in that parent perspective. And it's always been amazing to see just some of these people like kind of get a glimpse of like the reality of what they're walking into, because
Yeah.
you know, they just don't know.
It's fascinating to be a parent in that context, like to be learning as a parent and realize how, and for nobody, it's really nobody's fault, but it's just that the parent perspective doesn't really come into play as often, or it doesn't feel as organic as it could.
Right.
So the more opportunities, and it's so valuable, you know, it's sometimes that missing piece of how do we help this, and you know, how do we strengthen that relationship so parents feel comfortable to talk about this thing, and it's not. Yeah,
absolutely. I've always said that it feels like when you leave early intervention, like when you leave children's support services, it's like this drop off after you leave preschool and you hit kindergarten, and it's just like suddenly you're in over your head and you have no idea how it just happened, and you're like, holy cow. Because in preschool and early intervention, the family was the focus, because family is part of the child. The child isn't just this individual floating along, they're part of a unit. And then once they hit elementary school, it's almost like that unit seems to disappear, because it's working under the model of a neurotypical child that slowly gains that independence and has the ability to step away as an individual. Whereas some of our students don't have that ability. They must remain part of the family unit to function. And so the family unit has to be taken into consideration for them. And it's not, because
there's a way to do it. There's definitely a way to do it.
Oh, totally.
And I think this is a great start. Yeah. I think that this is a really great start. And if we can all keep each other in mind and the really wonderful people who are providing the services as well, we'll get.
Right, absolutely.
I think we can get a lot done. Yeah.
I laugh because my husband pretty much introduced us to our new team, you know, because this year it was like a huge transition. We went to middle school this year. So it was like new school, new team, like, oh my gosh. And he was just like, just so you know, we're really, really heavy communicators, and you're going to hear from us so much. And we're so sorry. And they were so they were like, no, anything you can give us, you know. So teams want the information. I just don't think that they're trained in the best way of getting the information.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we have something to share with you about that, actually. Erica, you might agree with me. We have, if you want to check out our website, the students, or I should say webpage, the Student Support Services webpage, we have a special education procedural manual. Not all of the forms are linked and open to the public, but what I'm trying to say is that we just created that this summer with Farah and Eric and I, and I think it's very comprehensive. I'm sure it's missing pieces, but please check out the Student Support Services website or page. Because there's a lot there, and the reason why I brought this up was because within that is an information page that we are requiring our special educators to hand out, an information page, I should say, to hand out to parents prior to IEP meetings to get information that's more comprehensive, because it's so difficult when you're in the meeting to think of all the things, and then you leave and you think to yourself, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I say this? You know. And then they are the same way. Why did I not ask that question? I know that from my own experience. So that's part of the wonderful work that Erica and Sarah have been doing.
Awesome.
So I'll share that with you though, so you can see that.
Take a look.
No, I just recently filled that form out for our IEP that we had a few weeks back, and it was very nice to see in, you know, the rough draft IEP, you know, our comments from that form that weren't even brought up at the meeting because they didn't need to be brought up, but they were there.
Good point.
You know, and it was in writing without having to take 1,000 hours to describe. It was just, okay, we can take that 1,000 hours at our own time filling in these spaces.
Sure. And it won't work for everybody, but I think it's a good step in the right direction. We have another document that we want to spruce up a little bit that's for the teachers as well, so that they don't have to remember to bring all the pieces as well. So we're going to get more efficient to serve our students better. That's the plan. So anything else to add for, I think we're full up on next month, but anything else to add for future topics, and we'll just keep building it.
I would say, you know, my son is a junior this year, so that, you know, he only has another year left after this one, and then I'm left kind of what's next for him, you know. So those resources is something that I personally am really looking for. And I'm sure there are other parents of high schoolers that are probably thinking the same thing. What is going to be the next step for them?
Yeah, that's a big topic, and we can definitely address that. That's something we're working on quite heavily right now as well. So
That's
I'm
where
just not ready for the thought of it yet.
I get it. But you know what?
How about supporting parents who they themselves have disabilities?
Mhm.
You know, it's hard enough raising children in general, but then you throw in a disability for them, and then you throw one in for yourself on top of it all. Like, it's those layers, I think, should be a little unpeeled, and what we can provide for all families.
I was just thinking, I wonder if it would be of interest to parents to have, you know, almost each meeting a little bit of IEP, you know, special education 101, you know, just like each time there might be a little something to help navigate the world. I think, as I think it was Jessica, you said that your child's a junior. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's certainly times where things like transitioning or something would take center stage, but I wonder if parents would appreciate just, you know, a little something each time where there's something that's helping you to understand the process a little bit more.
Yeah.
Great idea. I also hear a lot from families leaving preschool that they're not ready for the change of IEP from preschool to kindergarten. It's substantially different. So that might just be something that the district wants to look at when you are transitioning pre-Kers out into kindergarten, going over what the new IEPs will look like for those families.
That's important. And the one thing that you haven't seen yet, Kelly, is the change in the IEP when a student is 16.
For what?
And when a student is 16, there is a pretty significant change in the IEP then too.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. That's a good thing to put in.
Yeah. So it's a transition to adulthood, which is something that Jessica was probably is more familiar with. And that's a big topic. There are 17 indicators of successful special education programs, and we can talk about all of them. The indicator 13, which is what I refer to it staff, is one that's near and dear to our hearts, and that's the adult transition one. They all are important, but that's an important one because we know our kids are going to be out in the community soon. And yeah, it can be scary, especially for families who are transitioning to adult services because the student has a pretty significant disability that's going to need those supports. We can invite guest speakers to our meeting. We have some very people in our district that know that upside down and backwards. And I think that's a great topic. Also the pre-K piece too. So great.
Can we also at some point do like a how to access SSDI or SSI, whichever one it is, kind of how to or resource?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
So we are down to 1 minute, and I want to make sure I am adherent to the begin and end on time piece. Is there anything else I should add to this list before we close?
Fix it all.
Sorry. You know, one of my biggest battles with Cody at the moment is that, you know, he wants a job so bad because he is 17 years old and he wants a job. And those, you know, within the school, we have tried to, he does have his case manager, then he has his Howard worker, and you know, there are people involved with things, but then there's, you know, interviews for him are never going to be easy, that, you know, because of his language disabilities. So looking for other resources on how to get them that help with learning how to do an interview and how to, you know, conduct those things, because that's my biggest thing right now with him. And also, like, he, of all places, he wants to go work at Hannaford's. I'm like, not during a pandemic, sorry. You're scaring the heck out of me right now. You know, but those resources for them looking for the job, like, that's, it's, I don't even know what to do with that. I just keep telling him no.
Good to know. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time tonight. And again, that mission statement is available for editing. Please feel free to do that. Don't feel compelled, but please do feel free to do so. We will meet again next month, same link. And I, again, appreciate your time very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how people were putting their emails up, but I don't know how to share that.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, Jessica, say that again.
People were, I saw that there were emails going up of people. I don't know how to do that on here, but feel free to share mine, Laura. Thank you.
Sounds good. Be well.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye, everyone. Yeah.